Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon. I apologize for, starting this a little bit late. I had a bit of a family emergency that I had to get to and I had to take care of, and it only lasted, it was 10 minutes. So I apologize for such a really late start. I know we usually start at 12:30, but I really had to participate in this family emergency because, it was a family emergency. I had to. For those of you on the podcast and audio section, you guys have, you guys won't have to worry about anything, because, it genuinely doesn't affect you. This only affects the live audience. So, anyways, we have a lot to talk about in this, on this podcast. So, the first segment, it's going to be about whether or not we're going to discuss the Lakers, and there was a report that I saw that claims that LeBron and Anthony Davis, they want to go all in on getting another star. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that and in my opinions on that as well. Then in the second segment, we are going to talk about Scottie Barnes and his new contract with the Toronto Raptors. Then in the third segment, we're going to talk about how OG Anunoby has declined his player option. This is the worst possible scenario for the New York Knicks. Honestly, I can't think of a scenario worse than this, other than when Kevin Durant didn't sign with the Knicks and decided to sign with Brooklyn. Yay, those years were something. But then in the fourth segment, we are going to talk about there was recently, a while ago actually, that Scottie Pippen, he made some claims that MJ's Michael Jordan's stats in some of the box scores and in some of the games were inflated, fabricated, and just to give him sort of I guess you could say just to boost his stats and make him look a little bit better. So we're going to talk about that in the fourth segment. Then we also have a special fifth segment that I reveal at the end of the fourth segment. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about this topic about the Lakers. So recently, this report was it was posted by Sideline Sources. So this is the same source that predicted that JJ Redick was going to be the next head coach for the Lakers when I did that podcast saying that JJ Redick was confirmed to be the Lakers' new coach before the contract negotiations were even released. So this is I personally find this a very trustworthy source that and it makes the claim that LeBron and Anthony Davis want to go all in grabbing another star. And I understand this image is old. I gotta point this way. I always point this way when it's this way, but it's from my point of view, the image is on my right side. So, but in reality, it's gonna be on the left side, even though you guys can see it on the right. But besides that, so Anthony Davis, LeBron James, they want to go all in on an elite player, at least according to this report, and the most recent example that I can give of the Lakers wanting to go all in was when they went all in with Russell Westbrook. And everyone knows just how wonderfully that went. Everyone just remembers how amazing Russell Westbrook was on the Lakers. He was so amazing. He was the best player you guys could have ever wished to have. He was dominant. He was rebounding. I'm just kidding. He was horrible. That he was the worst I've ever seen Russ play basketball. Literally the worst. And it's I personally, for the longest time, I knew that Russell Westbrook wasn't as good of a player as a lot of people make him out to be. I'm sorry, but he's a stat padder. He pads his stats to the brink. It is apparent that he stat pads, and his high usage rate inflates all of the stats that he accumulates over a stretch of the game. And this was, the first time that his very bad performances were put on full display. And I'm sorry to say this. I mean, like, I'm not going to deny the lineups were bad. The rotations were also really bad. The way that they utilized Russ was pretty bad. But Russ was bad as well. He couldn't shoot. He turned the ball over. He turned the ball over way too many times. He wasn't accumulating the same stats that he would normally do, simply because his usage rate was a lot lower than what he's normally accustomed to. He's a player that needs the ball in his hands 24/7 in order to be effective. And the fact that you can't win with him having the ball in his hands 24/7 should be enough to tell you that he is not the kind of player that should be on this team. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but like, that was just how it was. So they want to go all in again, despite the fact that, it seems like every single time that they go all in, they always it's bad. Now, I understand that it's only happened like twice, but I mean, the first time that the Lakers went all in was with Anthony Davis, and they got rewarded with a championship. That's cool. Then they decided to break up that championship team and go all in again on another player, which, in my opinion, wasn't that cool. Obviously, that happened a little bit afterwards, like when they lost a couple of times in the postseason. But I did not agree with going all in with Russell Westbrook from the jump. I couldn't back it up. Like, I had a feeling like, oh, maybe he'll be a good third option. Like when LeBron and AD are on the bench, he could, carry the load for a bad team. But it just didn't happen. It genuinely just didn't happen, because he was missing easy shots. He was missing layups. He was hitting nothing but the backboard on mid-range shots. He hit the side of the backboard in some of these attempts. He hit the top of the backboard on some shot attempts. Like, he just could not do anything with the ball properly. It was bad. Lakers fans were begging him not to shoot in certain instances. It was not good. It was not good. Like, and he hasn't been good since this instance. Honestly, like, I'm sorry to say this, but ever since he left Houston, I understand Russ on the Wizards was fantastic, but but that was the only reason why people even think he was fantastic, was because he was dropping triple doubles. But these triple doubles were minimal. Like, they would be 10, 10, and 10 games, and where he'd have like 8 turnovers, or he'd go like let me think here. There was this one game that I remember. He was like 3 for 12 from the field and still had a triple double, and everyone was like, "Oh, triple double, yeah!" And I'm just like, dude, he shot 3 for 12. That is horrible. That is a really bad shooting percentage to have, especially as a point guard. And I understand, like, if you accumulate all of these other stats, like, sure, but like at the end of the day, the field goal percentage is hurting the team. So I personally don't think the Lakers should go all in on another star, because like I feel like it's about time that they learn from their mistakes and build like an actual solid team around these players. First of all, get rid of D'Angelo Russell, because let's face it, he deserves to be gone after stinking it up against the Denver Nuggets. And, talking like, he owns the franchise. I am sorry to say this, but, like, the way that he was talking about, like, performing, like, yeah, that performance ain't gonna happen again. He said something like that. And for him to drop 0 points in one of those playoff games, yeah, he's gone. Get him out of here. But I don't think the Lakers should go all in. I think they need when they won, when they had a very complete team, when it was LeBron and Anthony Davis, and then the rest of those supporting players doing their job. That was when they won. They need to go back to that. They can't go back to they can't go all in on another star. And not only that, what other star are they going to go all in on? Like, what other free agent is going to are they going to go all in on? I genuinely don't know. Now, granted, now that I think about it, OG, he recently, he declined his player option, so that is, that could happen, but I doubt that. I highly doubt he's going to want to join the Lakers, but we'll see how that works. But I don't really agree with this go all in on a star mentality when you're the Lakers, because you've tried it before, you tried it with Russ and it didn't work. So now it's time to maybe look at it, try a different approach. Try getting a solid team around LeBron and Anthony Davis, and don't get another star, because relying on another star hasn't really seemed to work for LeBron at all in his career. When you genuinely think about it, in a lot of the postseasons that LeBron has played in, the third option most of the time doesn't show up. And sometimes obviously the second option also doesn't show up, but it would be the third option on the team on LeBron's team that just genuinely doesn't show up. Like, for example, when he was on Miami, Chris Bosh, he was notoriously bad in the postseasons compared to how he was in the regular seasons. And yes, he did get that clutch rebound and passed it to Ray Allen, but the next series after that, he played horribly in 2014. Same with D Wade. Then when LeBron was in the finals in 2017, Kevin Love was playing pretty he had a good game. He had 27 points in game 1, but that was it. Aside from that, he was not that good in the postseason. And further down the road, when they made the finals again in 2018, Kevin Love was just non-existent. Every single one of LeBron's teammates were non-existent in that series. And it really it happens a lot with LeBron. It happens all too often. And I don't really think getting a third option is the right step. They need to get multiple options and just have a solid team. So that's all I have for you guys on this first segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I talk about Scottie Barnes and how he recently became the most paid Raptor in the franchise's history. So I'll be right back right after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. In this second segment, we are going to talk about a little bit about Scottie Barnes and his new contract with the Toronto Raptors, because it's a pretty big deal. This happened during this happened actually while I was in jury duty yesterday. So, fantastic. That was great. I couldn't cover this live. I wish I could have covered this live, but better late than never, I guess. So before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Excuse me. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about one of my favorite players in the NBA. I'm a very huge fan, big fan of Scottie Barnes. He was on my fantasy team for basketball. He was a demon. Like, and a demon in a good way. Like, he was putting up stats after stats after stats. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And he was one of the biggest reasons why my team was really, really good in fantasy, because he was one of those sleeper picks. And I picked him up, and I am so glad that I did, because that was and it was unfortunate, because, like, that league that I was in, it ultimately ended up we ultimately ended up not taking it as seriously as we were in the beginning. I think it was like 10-1 at one point. Like, I was on fire in that league, and he was one of the biggest reasons, and rightfully so. Scottie Barnes, he led the Raptors, like, before he got injured. Unfortunately, before he got injured, he was leading the Raptors in every single statistical category that there is: points, rebounds, assists, steals. What other stats? Blocks. I don't know if he was leading in turnovers, but all of the good stats, he was leading the Raptors in. It was great. He was a great player. He is a great player, and is definitely going to be the face of the Raptors. And especially after this new contract that he signed, if my phone can load. I don't want to look at a Charmin Ultra Soft commercial. Thank you. All right. So the Raptors, they fully committed on Scottie Barnes. They signed him to a 5-year contract extension, which would be worth up to $270 million. This, again, effectively makes him the most paid Toronto Raptor in the franchise's history, which is it's very, very impressive that someone so young is already going to be making this much money. He would be guaranteed $225 million as part of his deal, and that would rise to $270 million if he were to be named an All-NBA or an All-Defensive team. And he's already made an all-star team, so one of those outcomes is, it's entirely possible. And I was screaming it from the mountaintops when I wanted Scottie Barnes to be on the all-star team. I was screaming it from the mountaintops. He deserved it. He's been the best player on the Raptors. Well, the Raptors, they aren't in the biggest market and things like that. He deserved to be in the All-Star game, like, without a doubt. And like, I wish he should have been the starter. He should have been on the starting lineup, but I digress. So again, he averaged for the season, he averaged 19 points, almost 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists for Toronto last season. And unfortunately, the team went 25-57, but this is a good thing. Like, I mean, this is the time where it's expected for them to lose. And the fact that they have somebody this talented on a losing roster, it's great. It's good news, because this means that the Raptors, they're able to build around a player, this talented. And that's really, like, their goal. They're going to build around Scottie Barnes, and since they are a losing team, they'll have higher slots in the draft. And the only problem, really, I think, that Scottie Barnes and the Raptors might face in their careers, it might be, bringing stars over to Canada, and, like, bringing good talent over to Canada. I mean, now, I'm not saying that there aren't, talented, there are talented basketball players that, that come from Canada. I mean, Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just to name a few. So, but bringing in, it's really difficult to convince people and athletes, like, oh, why don't you come over to Toronto, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, I don't want to be that guy, but it's cold. It's really cold up there. And it's not really that, how do I say? I'm not even gonna, like, make any kind of statement on that. But it might not be pleasing to a lot of people, just how cold it gets. And it's not as easy as encouraging people to come to Los Angeles or to come to Miami, because, there's beaches there. It's good lifestyle. Like, there's a lot of fun that's going on over there, like, as you know. And it's really difficult it's a lot easier to convince people to go over to places that have those kind of environments more so than it is to, like, for Toronto or, like, for other places. And not to mention the marketing on, like, from the Raptors, it's not really that, it's not that popular. Like, the last time that the Raptors were really, really popular was when Kawhi Leonard was on the roster. And after that, they haven't really gotten that good coverage. Now, Siakam was one of those players that didn't get enough coverage when he was on the Raptors, and he was a little bit underrated for a time, in my opinion. And, now he's getting more recognition for being on the Pacers, and it might be because the team isn't as good as it's been previously, because even before Kawhi, there was Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, and they were pretty popular during the especially in 2017 when DeMar was having that MVP caliber season. So, it's maybe the marketing, like, for Toronto isn't that bad, but it's really I think it's a little bit more difficult to recruit people, like, over there, especially and it's like a Cleveland. It's like the things that happen in Cleveland. Like, it was difficult for LeBron to recruit in Cleveland. It's going to be difficult for, like, other people to recruit, but the Raptors, they do have they could get a lot of good players, and they're going to try to build around them, through drafting, things of that nature. So it's entirely plausible. I really do like that he is going to be the first option on the team. He 100% deserves it, and the contract, he definitely deserves it. Leading your entire team in every single statistical category, from points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and all of them, that's like Wilt Chamberlain good. Wilt has done that before in several other games and in several seasons, I'm pretty sure. And that's also a LeBron type of stat line where it's really it's incredibly difficult to lead your team in every single statistical category. Granted, his team wasn't that good, but it still takes a rare talent to be able to do that. And not many people, players in the history of basketball are actually able to do that. LeBron could probably do that. Victor Wembanyama, when he's done developing, definitely 100% can totally do that. And I have a feeling that Victor is going to do that for years to come. But yes, I think this is a great deal for the Raptors, and they already have their eyes set on a star. The difficult part's out of the way. Like, I'm trying to find that number one option. That's always the most difficult part. They got that out of the way. Now they have to get through step 2 and recruiting other players or getting other players to help Scottie Barnes in their goal to try and win another championship. So that is all I have for you guys on this second segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the third segment where we are, it's a crisis in New York. An absolute crisis. OG Anunoby has declined his player option, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the third segment. And cry, yell, scream, throw up, all those emotions are going to happen on the podcast. So be sure to tune in right after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to talk about OG Anunoby declining his player option and how this is probably like the absolute worst thing that could happen to the New York Knicks. It's like you can't be New York without something bad happening. Like just out of nowhere. It happens every single time with any New York team. Every time. It happened with the Giants recently, with Darren Waller just out of nowhere deciding to retire. Like, I'm still baffled and shocked and like all these emotions running through me with that decision. And I'm just like, we get a tight end, we give him a huge contract, and here he goes, just retiring out of the blue. All because of this and that and the other. And it's just, there's no other way to explain it other than it being New York. Like, there is genuinely no other way. And it happens all the time. It happens every single time. Just something bad happens, like, just out of nowhere. It's like, you can't have nice things. It's like they can only last for a few seconds, and then boom, it's all gone. And this is exactly what this is. So, recently, the Knicks, they traded for OG Anunoby, and they gave up a lot of good pieces for him, but they gave up some pieces for him, obviously, and they got a great player in return. He was a fantastic role player. Like, without a doubt, one of the most important players for the Knicks roster and their success. They wouldn't have gotten where they were without his defense, and they stopped short because they missed out on him because, he was injured, and, being injured, obviously, one of the best players on your team getting injured, it means you're going to lose in the postseason. It makes total sense. But this is bad. Like, this is really, really, really bad if you're the Knicks. I mean, he's declined his player option, and now he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, and he's very, like, a lot of teams have their eyes set on OG. Like, he's practically like pinching the Knicks right now. Like, he's grabbing them by the throat with this move. It's so unfortunate because, like, how do I sum this all up? So they've expected Anunoby, like a lot of league observers, they expected Anunoby to decline the player option for the final season of his 4-year, $72 million contract he signed in December 2020 as a member of the Raptors. And the Raptors, they drafted him as the 23rd pick in the 2017 draft. He was he's honestly more notorious, or like, I knew him for the longest time as being the one guy that like was guarding LeBron, and LeBron just absolutely torched. Like, LeBron cooked this man in the postseason. And I had a friend that's a Raptors fan, and he was arguing so much during this game. He was like, why are they putting this rookie on LeBron James? That is the worst possible matchup ever. And it ultimately ended up being one of the worst possible matchups. But he's definitely improved as a defender and as a shooter. And he's one of the best 3-and-D wings, and a vital piece on the Raptors team, and a vital piece on the Knicks and their successes. And let's see. Hold on. Under the deal, Anunoby was set to earn $19.9 million next season in a financial environment in which the salary cap has risen to $141 million for the 2024 and 2025 season. He could wind up nearly doubling that salary in the first year of a new multi-year agreement, which is, it makes sense why he would want to decline his player option, because, he feels like he should be making more money. But this is really, really bad news for the Knicks, because they just traded for a star. Well, not really a star, but they just traded to a player who's very, very important to their offense, right? And now all of a sudden, he's becoming a free agent, declining his player option. Like, they gave up a bunch of players just to get a player who is going to leave. Like, if he does leave, granted, we have no idea whether or not he's going to leave, and we have no idea if New York is going to offer him a better contract. But as of where things stand right now, it's looking really bad. And it's just like this thing happens all the time with New York teams. It's like something good happens, and it seems like it could work long term, but then something along the lines, like, a bump in the road just happens, and then boom, your entire hopes and dreams ended right there. And this happened with it happened with Brooklyn. I mean, they made a huge risk in signing Kevin Durant and in signing Kyrie Irving and trading for James Harden. Then they had to trade away James Harden, and then they had to blow up the entire roster and get rid of Kyrie and get rid of Kevin Durant. It was a risk, and it only lasted a few years. And it's like I said, you can't have nice things in New York. And what makes it even worse was how the Nets, they were on a winning streak. And then out of nowhere, Kyrie's just like, I'm going to request a trade. I want to go to Dallas. It's just, you can't have nice things. You cannot have nice things if you are from New York. It's annoying. And it's but hopefully, there's still hope. Obviously, there is still hope. The Knicks could easily re-sign him with a better contract deal, and try and negotiate a better contract with him. But just declining the player option, it only and wanting to test the free agency market, it could spell really bad news for New York. Because if there are other teams that are, and trust me, there are going to be other teams that are going to be interested in OG, then you're going to have that competition. And being New York, you're going to have to pay OG a huge amount of money if you want him to stay. Because there are going to be other teams that are probably going to be paying him even more to stay. So it's really, oh my gosh, it is such a difficult conflict. And OG's individual production, he averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, and in 34 minutes. And, per 100 possessions, he actually averages 21 points, which is great. Per 100 possessions, that is great. And he also has the ability to space the floor. He shot 39% from 3 on 4 attempts while he was on New York, which is, again, fantastic. And, his defense is just the other side of the ball, which is phenomenal. His defense is great. It was great in the postseason, and it's been great throughout the regular season. And when he was with Jalen Brunson, they were winning in almost every single game. I just pray and I hope that the Knicks, they don't want to break this up. And because this duo it'll work. They just need maybe somebody else on the roster, that could provide a good scoring punch. But they have to try and keep OG. He is a very vital player to this team. Extremely vital. Same with Josh Hart and same with Dante DiVincenzo. All of those 4 guys, they are untouchable with New York. Untouchable. No one touches them. But that's basically my opinion on OG Anunoby. And let me just see what else do we have on this. He averages 1.7 steals, 1 block, and 3.2 deflections per game after the trade, which is amazing. That is very, very good value for a defender, and you can't give that up. I'm sorry, you just cannot give up a player who brings so much value like this. You can't do it. It's that simple. And I hope that the Knicks, they're able to work out a deal with OG Anunoby, and they're able to have him earning a decent salary, one that keeps him happy, and one that keeps him in New York. I know I keep saying that I am a Nets fan, but I'm also I am a New York fan. Whenever the Nets aren't in the playoffs, the Knicks are going to be the team that I root for. And I understand some people might find it odd. Well, guess what? It's my opinion, and I can do whatever I want. But that is basically all that I have to say about about this little situation, I guess you could say. And it really is unfortunate that OG, he had to miss the next 3 games against Indiana. And, he even said, quote, "I just wanted to play," as Anunoby said after the game. "I wanted to try, like at least try to help my teammates." And as he left the home locker room at Madison Square Garden for the summer, the Knicks' Josh Hart pointed toward Anunoby and Isaiah Hartenstein and said, "Those two better come back." So I hope that the Knicks listen to Josh Hart and they bring them back. And he also said, when another player on the roster goes, "These two better come back," especially when it's someone like Josh Hart, you better listen to him. You better listen to him, New York. If you don't, some severe consequences are going to happen in the season. But that's beside the point. So with that is we are out of time for this third segment. Please, OG, please go back to New York. The Knicks need you. Otherwise, the city is going to grow up in flames. But, that's beside the point. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment where we take this story to the 90s and we talk about Scottie Pippen and how he says that Michael Jordan's stats were inflated or fabricated or whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk a little bit about that right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to talk a little bit about Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. In my opinion, he's the second greatest basketball player of all time. LeBron James is better. And we are also going to talk about one of his biggest haters, his own teammate, Scottie Pippen. I know, it's crazy how Scottie Pippen just doesn't like Michael Jordan. And, from a casual perspective, you're going to think, why doesn't he like Michael Jordan? I mean, he won the championship with him 6 times. What now? I'll explain why. Pippen doesn't like Michael Jordan simply because of his attitude, how and also how he's been remembered as the sidekick for a majority of his career. One would say that he was a little bit jealous, and it also doesn't help that he wasn't paid nearly as much as Michael Jordan. And ever since retirement and all of these things, and Scottie Pippen has said that Michael Jordan is a jerk and that he's selfish, only cares about himself, things of that nature, stuff that would make him look bad. He's also an advocate for LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. He's said this several times. He's arguably one of Michael Jordan's biggest haters. And basically just, refresher for those of you guys who are some casual fans and don't really understand the full history of Scottie and Michael Jordan's little beef. And it's this has sort of been a thing for the longest time, just Pippen being jealous of Michael Jordan and Pippen not liking Michael Jordan and how his mentality is. Because we all love to say oh, Michael Jordan was such a tough guy, but really, and how he has that mentality of always winning and things of that nature. But at sometimes it is seen as a little bit selfish. I mean, let me try to think of a good example. Like, a lot of people, they love to talk about, how Michael Jordan is such a savage, and, like, how he'll say these kinds of things. Like, there was one time where he even told a teammate, literally in the middle of, like, he would, and he was a jerk to his teammates. He even punched, Steve Kerr at one point, and there's so many stories that you can pull where Michael Jordan is sort of just, being a little bit of, not necessarily, the nicest person, but, a lot of fans, they love to, like, they love to hint that as, oh my God, it's just Michael Jordan's drive to win. He just wants to win, this, that. They all defend his attitude, even though it's not really a good attitude to have sometimes. But I digress on that. And Pippen obviously just isn't a fan of Michael Jordan. And one thing that he said recently, actually, in a book, like, I don't know why this was brought up recently now, but, like, in his book, Unguarded, in 2021, he claims that some of Michael Jordan's stats were fabricated or inflated. Like, the scorekeepers and the stat keepers would inflate Michael Jordan's stats to make his stats look better. And I'm looking at this article real quick. If anyone in Chicago, the Bulls organization, in the NBA, or the media would have suggested that Jordan's stats weren't entirely accurate before Scottie Pippen's 2021 book was released, this claim would have more validity. Considering the number of eyes following the walking legend that was Michael Jordan on a nightly basis, it seems unrealistic that no one would bring this to the league's attention earlier than nearly 3 decades after the alleged seasons took place. So, this is what Pippen had to say in his in the book that he wrote. So I'm just, like, pulling up the quote from my phone right here. All right. So he'd say, one night let's say I deflected the ball and tapped it over to MJ. I should get credit with the steal, right? Nope. He also said, one night a scorekeeper came into the locker room to hand the stat sheet to Phil Jackson. I couldn't believe the look the guy gave Michael. See, MJ, we take care of you. That's what Pippen claimed in his book, right? Now, obviously, there's going to be the question, like, okay, wait a minute, why are we going to listen to the guy that's known for disliking Michael Jordan to a ridiculous degree? Why are we going to listen to one of Michael Jordan's biggest haters? And I'll tell you why. Because this isn't the first time that this has been brought up. Now, my boss, actually, we were talking about this earlier in the meeting. He says that this debate has been brought up before. And he remembers that there was this one instance where an analyst watched Michael Jordan's games and he looked at the box scores. There was this one time where MJ, he ended the game with more steals, like, on the box scores than the team had turnovers, right? But when he watched the game, he didn't see that. And there was a lot of times where he would watch, like, he mentioned his Michael Jordan's assist numbers in some of the games that the analyst was watching being a little bit higher, on the box scores, like, than it was in the actual game. Like, they retract his stats in a couple of the games. And in the games where they retract the stats, it was the analyst found out that that Michael Jordan's assist numbers were a bit inflated. He had more assists on the box scores and the stat sheet than he did in the actual game. And, this is, I don't have, I'll do another one. I'll do a follow-up section on this with a more concrete evidence, but this is just what my boss had to say. So I'm just shedding a new light on that because, he's been alive. Like, he was alive when Michael Jordan was playing. I wasn't alive when Michael Jordan was playing. And so, just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing that out there because that's what he had to say. And, I'll do a follow-up segment on, or maybe, over one of these weekends, maybe I'll just watch one of a full 90s game or a full 80s game where Michael Jordan, and look at the stat sheets for that game and do it myself. If you guys want me to do that, let me know in the comments. But I'll go ahead and I'll do a follow-up segment on this, trying to get much more like, solid concrete evidence of this myself, but rather than just, taking the information from what somebody else tells me. But again, it is my boss who told me that, so I'm just throwing it out there. So looking at the rest of this article, there's almost no other backing to Pippen's recollections, at least according to this article. There are a few recorded games on various streaming services that will show a few missed statistics here or there, which happens in all sports to this day. It's well documented that Jordan had a great relationship with the scorekeeper for his entire career, Bob Rosenberg. Still, Rosenberg refuted ever tainting the stat sheet in favor of any individual player, including Michael Jordan. He did admit to trying to help pad Jordan's stats by signaling him where his numbers stood in some games, including trying to relay that he was just 2 points shy of Wilt Chamberlain's All-Star game scoring record, which the former Tar Heel would end still 2 points shy. Questioning the integrity of scorekeeping, who says he did probably more than 2,000 Bulls games and maybe another 2,000 with MLB games, doesn't represent a strong argument for Pippen, at least, according to this article and things of that nature. The debate will continue to run its course on social media with plenty of speculation and probing before it goes dormant for several more years, but for the sake of finding the truth, there's not enough hard evidence, at least according to this article. So this seems much more like a few random cases sprinkled throughout their tenure together, turned into an outlandish assumption made from jealousy or in retaliation to the Last Dance documentary. Oh, I completely forgot to mention that. There was Scottie Pippen. He was unhappy about the Last Dance documentary. That's another reason why he dislikes Michael Jordan, because of how the Last Dance documentary sort of tainted Scottie Pippen and elevated Michael Jordan and, all of this, these kinds of things. Because the way Scottie sees it, he sees the Last Dance as Michael Jordan's way of, padding his legacy, I guess you could say, and making it a little bit more dramatic, simply because LeBron is on the cusp of being the GOAT. He already is the GOAT, but at the time he was on the cusp of being considered the GOAT. And there is some truth to that, I will say. In the Last Dance documentary, Michael Jordan, he talks about how the Magic ended up beating him, but the reasons for why the Magic ended up beating him are a little bit skewed. Like, I'll explain. So when Michael Jordan, he claims that the Orlando Magic got the better of him in 95 because he wasn't at 100%. If you look at Michael Jordan's averages, he was averaging around 30-something points per game. And in the elimination part, of the series, he was averaging like 36 points per game. Now, I don't know what prime MJ was, but that sounds like prime MJ, averaging 30-something points per game in a postseason series. And another thing that they failed to mention was how the Chicago Bulls were lacking at the power forward position. Meanwhile, the Orlando Magic had Horace Grant, a player that was on Michael Jordan's 3 championship runs in 91, 92, and 93. He joined the Magic, and they were missing that kind of player. And that was one of the reasons why the Magic got the better of them. Then, in the next, when Michael Jordan played the Magic again in 96, when they actually had a power forward that time, he completely left out the fact that Horace Grant got injured in that postseason. And that's how they ended up sweeping the Magic. But, he repainted the story as, now we're at 100%, now we have a better team, or like now we have more chemistry as a team, I'm in shape, and that was why we ended up winning. It wasn't like because, we actually got a solid power forward this time, and the Orlando Magic lost their power forward in one of the games. He didn't mention any of that. And not only that, he also, in 96 in the finals, the series where he played against the Seattle Supersonics, he had arguably his worst postseason performance in the finals. Arguably his worst finals performance in his entire career. He brushed over it. Like, he completely brushed over it. And because when Gary Payton was switched onto Michael Jordan, he was giving him work. Gary Payton was locking Michael Jordan up. Like, he was playing some very solid defense on Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan was saying, I had no problem with the glove. And, you know, it sort of tainted his reputation. It buffed his ego, if you want to call it. It inflated him, and that's sort of been the thought process. So that's basically the little story behind Scottie Pippen and his little distaste for Michael Jordan, and, you know, the inflation of his stats, things like that. So with that, we are out of time for this fourth segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the fifth segment, which is Cavs drama. Yeah, your favorite segment, everybody, because that seems to be like the one popular thing that's going on in the off season. Well, it's been constant for a while, but there's been a lot of drama in the Cavs market. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this fifth segment right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned. We are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be talking a little bit about Cavs drama because, you know, there's some stuff that I do have to talk about that I do need to catch up on. So first things first, it seems like the Cavs are very, very confident in being able to sign Donovan Mitchell to an extension, at least, you know, according to this article that I'm looking at right now. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, they've already picked their head coach. I mentioned that in a YouTube short, if you guys didn't pay attention to that. But essentially, Kenny Atkinson, he is going to be the next head coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And honestly, you want my opinion? I don't like him. I genuinely do not want him as my I mean, he was all right. I mean, I guess he was okay on Brooklyn, you know, when he had his little coaching moment in Brooklyn. I mean, like, it's water under the bridge, really. And, you know, he was replaced shortly after with Steve Nash, which was honestly even worse. But that was basically, you know, that's basically been his experience with the Brooklyn Nets and as a head coach. I mean, most of the time in his career, I'm just looking at his careers log right here. But most of the time throughout his career, he's been known as, you know, an assistant head coach, and jumping from assistant to being the head coach. It's, you know, it's a very big jump, and it's a very big difference. Like, being an assistant head coach is very different than being a head coach, right? And the acquisition of Kenny Atkinson, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. As a coach for the Brooklyn Nets, he didn't really have the best season, right? I mean, he didn't really have the best seasons, I guess you could say. I mean, he went 20-62 in one of them, 28-54 in another one, and then he only had one good year with Brooklyn, and that was in 2018-2019. That was honestly a very, very fun year being a Brooklyn Nets fan. They had Spencer Dinwiddie, they had Jarrett Allen, they had Joe Harris. Who else did they have? Karis LeVert, D'Angelo Russell. That was when they that was honestly, I think, the highlight of his coaching career. The fact that he was able to make or because like that team was fun. Like they were fun to watch. And while they didn't really do much in the postseason, they only won one game in the postseason, and they ended up losing in 5. I mean, I believe it was to Philly that they ended up losing. Yeah, they lost to Philly. It wasn't that bad. I mean, that was pretty fun. I really liked that. I really liked that season. And unfortunately afterwards, their best player, D'Angelo Russell, ended up leaving in free agency, and so the team ended up taking a dip. We ended up getting Jamal Crawford though, so that was always fun. But it was a new team, and that sort of might have affected the coaching record. So when it comes to building a relatively young team and having a good environment with the young team, I think Kenny Atkinson, he does a great job with that. But overall, his coaching resume and his coaching career, it hasn't really been all that impressive. So there's still some ifs, ands, and buts that need to be answered with Kenny Atkinson being their new coach. But being with the young guys and with the younger guys, and also having coached Jarrett Allen before, it could end up working out. It could end up being really cool. But we'll see, because that Nets team had, I'm going to use a term that a lot of people are using now, it had aura. Like, that team had aura, and everyone in New York loved that aura. That was so much fun. But so he's been appointed to being Cleveland's new head coach. The next thing on the list for the Cavs to do is to extend Donovan Mitchell, who is eligible to opt out of his current deal next summer. Okay? Now, as I mentioned before, it seems like, if Donovan Mitchell signs with the Cavs, like with the extension, then Darius Garland is going to request a trade. But also, as I mentioned previously, the Cavs don't want to trade Darius Garland. So this might be a very bad conflict between, the player and the organization. And most of the time, the player ultimately ends up being the one that gets traded in the end, and the organization ends up winning. Or, not really winning, I guess you could say. The organization is the one that ends up losing, actually. That's my bad. I don't know why I said the organization ends up winning. It's usually the player that really ends up winning whenever they want to get traded. And so let's continue reading with this article. Accidentally opened up Twitter. According to The Athletic, Cleveland is confident that Mitchell will sign the extension contract soon. The Cavs are prepared to offer him a $209 million extension. The 4th year of that deal is expected to be a player option. And this report is not surprising. The front office and even Dan Gilbert have expressed optimism over Mitchell extending with the Cavs for the last several months. And that belief seems to only be increasing. And I'll say that, this is a quote, "I'll say that my exit interview with him was really good, that he was talking about the future and how excited he was about the team, the organization. Kobe Altman said last month, this is a player that has had 2 of the best years of his career here. He's had a lot of success here, understands the infrastructure, I think has a lot of trust in what we're doing, and understands that our goal is to win a championship." So Mitchell is eligible to sign his extension with the Cavs at any point now due to the NBA Finals ending. Things can change quickly in the NBA, but as it stands, it seems like Donovan Mitchell is going to extend in Cleveland, and that's just going to be a matter of when he does it as opposed to if he does it. So, according to the report, it seems like Donovan Mitchell is definitely going to re-sign. But what does that mean for Darius Garland? Excuse me. we have no idea what that could mean for Darius, and whether he gets mad and decides to request a trade a little bit after, that's still we still have yet to see that. And it's really difficult to, like, you know, judge that that's what's going to happen. And I have no idea, like, whether or not Darius is going to, you know, try to run it back again, but it doesn't really seem like he wanted to. I haven't heard a single report saying that he was keen on staying with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but it seems like, you know, now that they have the coach and now that they have the number one option, now they just have to worry about if Darius Garland's going to complain. So, and if any of the other players are going to complain. So that's basically all the drama that we got on the coaching and Donovan Mitchell and his extension. It's a little bit of a shorter segment than the rest of them, but, you know, that's basically the update on their head coaching vacancy. So he is the new coach, so that's always fantastic. They got a new coach. Yay! Everyone seems to be getting a new coach except for the Detroit Pistons. We'll see who the Pistons decide to get. But that is all I have for you on this podcast. And that is all I have for you for the show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. So remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all I have for you today on this segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.